Welcome to the Draknek and Friends official podcast, where we peel back the curtain on puzzle games and the people who make them. I'm Syrenne, the producer at Draknek and Friends, and I'm joined as always by Alan Hazelden, the head Draknek at Draknek and Friends.
Hey there.
Today, we're joined by Zachary Johnson, who you may know from his work on games like Joggernauts and the upcoming Stage Fright. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Can you tell our audience a bit about yourself for people who don't know who you are?
Yeah, so I go by Zachstronaut online to help differentiate myself from other Zachs and other Zach Johnsons. There's a few of us now, I feel like. I was the director, level designer, and programmer for Joggernauts, which is by Space Mace. There's three of us that are the primary people at Space Mace. And that's a cooperative, puzzly auto runner. Other games I've worked on people might have played would be Totally Reliable Delivery Service, which I did online multiplayer stuff for that, and also did some like race course design and coding for the racing minigame. And I've done some artsy stuff like Nespector, which was the massively multi-haunted NES, and the Donatron arcade cabinet. I think technically the first kind of commercial game thing I ever worked on was I was the programmer for Cartoon Network's BMO app for iOS, like a decade ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah. Now I'm working with Ghost Town Games, the folks who brought us Overcooked on Stage Fright that was just recently announced, and primarily doing online multiplayer code for them.
Awesome. Can you tell us a bit about Stage Fright?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you a ton without hired goons showing up at my door.
Yes, what you're allowed to say.
Yeah. So it's like a really endearing story with awesome puzzles. And for me, it was really exciting to see their sizzle reel when I was interviewing because of the spooky factor. You know, it's you can kind of see from the screenshots on Steam, the game's got a spooky vibe, and I am crazy about that sort of thing. So I got this big dumb smile on my face, and I'm like, yes, I want to work on this. This is so cool. I love the story. It's for two people. It's a co-op game that you always play with a friend. And it's got really cool puzzle rooms to solve. And I'm excited about it.
Awesome.
Exciting.
Well, the spooky stuff is actually part of why we brought you here.
Cool.
So you probably don't know or remember this, but, and this is important, everyone, we're recording this on April 24th, 2025.
Ooh.
On September 8th, 2017, you tweeted on the site formerly known as Twitter, quote, "I would buy Cosmic Express again at twice the price if it was about dropping off monsters at tombstones." And let me tell you, we are now less than 2 weeks away from announcing Spooky Express.
I am going to put my money where my mouth is. Put it on itch. I'll pay double. It's funny because I wanted to talk about this because I saw in the newsletter the tombstones, and I'm like, oh no, take my money. This is going to be a problem.
This is exactly what you think it is. You're hearing it here before the official announcement. We wanted to get you on the podcast to record it so that we could put this out.
I am stoked. I was gonna kind of tease you guys. I was gonna be like, I saw that screenshot. Can you just go ahead and leak everything to me now? And that's what's happening. This is the best.
That's the thing. Did you remember that tweet?
Reading it back to me, it is like, yeah, okay. But I wouldn't have told you I ever said that if you hadn't read it back to me.
You are probably the reason why this game exists.
Seriously.
That post stuck in my brain for 8 years.
That's amazing. I love that. It's funny because one of the things I've also tweeted and I say a lot is I wish I could haunt other people's games. I want the job of just the game's basically done. Hire me on, and I'll just haunt a small section of it, and I would love to do that for people. And I haunted your mind kind of this time. I planted a seed, and
you planted that seed.
I'm stoked. That's awesome. What else can you say about the game?
Yeah, so by the time this goes out, it's announced. So, Alan, why don't you kind of give the sales pitch?
Yeah, so Spooky Express is a spooky successor to Cosmic Express, where you're planning the train route for the world's spookiest theme park. You are picking up zombies and taking them to graves. You're picking up vampires and taking them to coffins. And you're also picking up hapless humans who are terrified by the monsters surrounding them. And like, if a vampire wants to get on the train and there's somewhere for the human to get off, like that human is getting off. They're getting scared off. And yeah, there's a lot of humans interacting with the monsters mechanics that we're playing with.
That's fantastic. Yeah, what's the classic puzzle with? Was it like?
Oh yeah, the fox, the hen, and the
in the
grain.
boat? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite that, but there's some of that.
Very cool. Yeah, I just like one of the questions that I would have put at the end of the podcast, but I feel like we're right there right now is like the theming of a game. And like, I feel like your puzzles are so, what's the way to say it? Like, you're very puzzle forward, right? Like, it's very clear your games are about mechanics and about the puzzles. And I wonder, do you ever get tripped up where you like fall in love with a aesthetic or a story before you've kind of fully baked the puzzle and that ends up leading you astray? Does that like happen to you, or are you always kind of mechanics first?
No, actually, to a surprising degree, the way I tend to design games is very theme and setting first.
Wow, I would not have guessed that.
Like you take the theme and like that will give me something concrete to base the mechanics around. Oh. But I think I come up with more interesting gameplay mechanics by going that way round. I think if you were to just come up with an abstract puzzle system and try to theme it, a lot of the time that can kind of be a bit weak, a bit like, yeah, well, this doesn't really click. It's hard to make it cohesive if you're going that way, I think. It can be done. Like I think there's a game called Jetstream, which is like kind of just a sliding block game where you're leaving trails behind and you can't cross your path. But that game, like it's themed with like, oh, you're an airplane and you're leaving this jet trail behind you and then you're bumping into clouds. And like, I think that game does a really good job of like taking a very abstract game and then finding the perfect theme for it. But I think it's really hard. And even Cosmic Express, like we didn't start with the aliens, but the aliens are kind of not really the important part. Like we started with a prototype that I made on Train Jam, which maybe we'll get into. But like that is just like, okay, you've got a train route and you're picking up passengers and dropping them off. But then when we put that in space, then I think like it's only after that point that we're like, okay, well, what are some different types of alien that we could have? And it's like, oh, what if we had a really slimy alien that gunks up the train and nobody other than slime aliens wants to get into that train? Like that's a mechanic that happened because of the theme rather than, oh, well, it'd be really cool. Like if you just say it out loud, it sounds like a kind of like that's not a fun mechanic. Like, oh, you're gonna have this thing where like if a passenger gets into this thing, nobody else can use that type of car. That's just gonna feel bad. But if you frame it in terms of like, oh, but this is the type of alien and this is why it makes sense, then going in that direction makes the mechanic work.
Yeah, I mean, who wants to get into a slimy orange or slimy
green,
car?
And so, yeah, I think I work best when I like the theme and the mechanics will interact with each other, and one will spawn ideas, and then you go back and like, oh, we've got this mechanic. How would that impact the theme or the setting? But like, yeah, I think starting with the theme helps everything feel very cohesive.
Yeah. Well, I've always kind of been curious about that. I don't think we've ever actually talked about that part of your process, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So it was inspired by Train Jam.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so Cosmic Express was inspired by a game I made called Train Braining. And Train Braining was made on the, I think, 2015 Train Jam.
I'm trying to think what year I went. I went on the last year that normal, regular commuters were on the train. It wasn't a fully booked private train.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Maybe that was 2016. Do you remember? Because, like, did we meet on Train Jam or did we meet each other again on Train Jam? I don't remember.
I don't know if we first met on Train Jam. I mean, I used to go to, like, literally every single video game event. And I think we crossed paths through maybe Jerry.
Sure.
Choose John Jerry if people are wondering who I'm talking about. Yeah. It could have been an Indiecade. It could have been a GBC. I don't really remember.
So yeah, I wasn't sure if you were on the Train Jam where I was making train braining. But if so, you don't remember it.
I don't remember train braining. I guess Train Jam is like a blur. I got motion sick from the trying to code, like look at a screen with the gentle sway of the train, and I ended up doing like pixel art instead of coding because that did make me sick. And Jerry and I were working on like a velvet rope puzzle with like a disgruntled line, a queue of people, and having to manage the like velvet rope maze, and didn't get very far because of too much socializing and too much motion sickness. But I slept like a baby, so that was nice.
What motivated you to join Train Jam in the first place?
I saw a bunch of people having fun on it, and I was going to go to GDC anyway. And then I think increasingly, after like a couple years of going to GDC and stuff, more and more of my friends were doing the Train Jam anyway. And so it seemed like a fun thing to do. That ride, the California Zephyr line, is gorgeous. Like I don't know how you like finish something on that and don't get distracted looking out the window the entire time. That was my other problem.
I guess for people who aren't aware, we should talk about what Train Jam is. So in the before times, the weekends prior to GDC, a bunch of game developers would get on a train in Chicago and ride it for 52 hours all the way to San Francisco across 2/3 of the United States and make games on it.
52 hours in the best case scenario. I'm pretty sure we got stuck somewhere for 5 hours.
Yeah, there was one time where it was delayed for, I don't know, 10 to 12 hours. But, that's fine. That's all part of the excitement.
Right. It's part of the experience for sure. Yeah.
And everyone loves being told, hey, you've got 10 more hours of work.
Right? That was the kind of bonus. It's like, wait, you get more time to finish up, which in any jam, you're like, well, I guess I could put like a real start menu on this and not just put it into the game. I remember the one that I was on in like the very, very last car, like all the way in the back, where you could like look backwards on the tracks. What is it? Is it Andrew Schultz? What? Tunic of Secret Legend. Like he was working on that in the way, way, way back of the train, and I was playing a prototype because I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was really an environment with so many cool people, and you could just wander down this train and bump into them and hear about what they're working on, either for the jam or like in general. Lots of really, really cool people I've met in that context.
Yeah, I think in particular for American listeners to this podcast, I bet there's a lot of them that have not done a long distance train ride, because why would they?
Oh, and the infrastructure is just not there for most people.
Can you imagine if we had high-speed rail everywhere? I mean, we have a little bit of a geographical problem in just how far away California is from, Chicago. But, man, that would be awesome to have bullet trains like Japan.
Yeah, I mean, even here in Wisconsin, the problem, not to get too into it, but like we had money set aside and everyone voted to say, yes, we want this with interstate between the biggest cities. And then another election happened, and then another person went in charge, and he said, "Nah, I want all that money for another project."
Yeah, tragedy.
So it's just so hard to get to happen here with having 50 individual states.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's so many things like I learned about that world doing Train Jam, like how there's like a dining car, and someone comes by and is like, what time do you want to come eat? And it's like very old fashioned and cute. They have observation train cars that are have a huge glass canopy, so you can really see what's going on. Yeah, I mean, I think if you haven't done it, you don't realize kind of what train travel is like. Did you work any? Were there any train thingies? It's a terrible way to put it. Were there train specific cultural things that ended up in your train video games, that you hadn't really thought of, but then you're on the train and you're working a dining car aspect or a train stops and the whistle blows and stuff like that?
I feel like the train games that we have made have been sufficiently abstract as to be not really inspired by reality in that way.
Yeah.
But like I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have made that original train braining game if it hadn't been for Train Jam, and if it hadn't been for train braining, I wouldn't have made Cosmic Express. If I hadn't made Cosmic Express, then Soccerbombs Express wouldn't have happened, and Spooky Express wouldn't have happened. So
now that you're giving me all this power, what you're telling me is that I can effectively reskin any of your catalog of games with a social media post?
I mean, you're 1 for 1 so far.
Great power.
I'm gonna say a phrase, and Melanie, I'd like you to bleep it, please. I posted this in a Slack a couple of months ago.
Ooh.
That's not going to be our next game, but what if it was?
What if it was?
It's so dangerous hearing these ideas come up.
Yeah.
Because every single time it's like, Alan, we have a whole document of potential next games. You keep adding more to it without reducing the games on the list.
That was my other end of the show question is, how do you decide? I imagine you don't just have one idea and that's it. You're like, well, I guess I only have this one idea. So what is your, I find this fascinating with all people who create things. It's like, what is your process for choosing between everything that pops in your head on what you're going to keep moving forward with and what's for later?
I mean, definitely calling it a process would be not representative of reality.
There's a process. I mean, for Spooky Express, when Alan says that this has been in his head, he has not been joking. Over the last 3 years or so, since 2022, discussion of Spooky Express has come up, and we've debated going into pre-production on it 3 times before we did. And honestly, we had, and we can talk about this openly now, we had decided on Spooky Express before we started development on the Electrifying Incident. The Electrifying Incident was originally conceived of as a 6-week Godot learning experiment of remaking a past puzzle script game so that we could determine if we wanted to commit to Godot for Spooky Express or if Spooky Express was going to be made back in Unity. But we didn't want to use Unity again for, let's say, Unity-related reasons.
Yeah.
And
I think I remember this slightly differently in that we knew we wanted to switch away from Unity, and so we knew that if we were going to switch to Godot, it wouldn't really matter for which game we'd want to make something really, really small, regardless of which Godot project we'd want to make after that. So I think that we decided to make Electrifying Incident, and then after we'd wrapped it, we were like, yep, we still like Godot. What game should we make in Godot?
That's not quite it. It was more that you hadn't fully convinced, but it was easier to convince you of moving to Godot. But yes, and then the other thing is that there's a vision of all of the potential games that we kind of had 3 major ideas of the next non 30-minute long Draknek internally developed game. And we had been talking about them, but the thing that kept coming up, and so if there's something to the process, I would say it's this. We were envisioning what the ideal scope that each game would want would be. And of all of them, definitely Spooky Express lended itself to a shorter development turnaround than the other 2, and that was very enticing to Alan.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason we went with Spooky Express was because we knew that it had the least potential for scope creep.
Sure. But that was before you spoke to me on this podcast.
Please.
Next 20 minutes adding nothing but scope and delaying the release of you.
Alan is so susceptible to scope creep, genuinely, and we have a release timing in mind already, so be careful what you suggest?
No, I am susceptible to it sometimes, but like I think for this game, I'm actually thinking about it very pragmatically.
Thank you for saying that on the record. Now I have an audio clip I can deploy.
For this game specifically. Anything
you said
else?
The exact same thing about Electrifying Incident.
And I stand by the decisions I made on that game.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're going to stand by your decisions across all of these. I'm just happy that this time it's on the record.
But no, like I would genuinely love to hear you pitch me on scope creep ideas. Nothing would make me happier.
Yeah. So you have vampires and zombies. We've established that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have skeletons or ghosts?
We should be cautious about what we reveal.
Yeah. I mean, I think you should pitch us what your ideas for skeletons and ghosts would be, and I maybe I'll have to go no comment, or I'll probably just go no comment by default. You know,
well, you can have some like good. I don't know. Do you like Easter eggs? Do you like non-game, like non-progress related things in your games, like, or do you try and have everything mechanically tied in?
I like me an Easter egg that then also unlocks something gameplay relevant.
Right. I'm just thinking, if the train like runs into and pushes a tombstone, then you get like the ghost coming out, like Zelda kind of vibes kind of thing. So like there could be something there. I mean, zombies could further rot and turn into skeletons, but that's getting pretty gross. So you have like a zombie to skeleton pipeline. You could have crows. Do you need a flying type creature?
I mean, we've discussed some flying type creatures, and we decided it's a little bit weird when like, why do they need the train?
Because they're little business crows, and they got their little hats and their little suitcases. They.
I mean, that sounds delightful, but not especially spooky.
Hey, you've never met a business crow, clearly.
Yeah, very spooky. They're spooky because they're a crow. They just happen to also be little business crows. And then at that point, you put a suit and tie on the vampire. You put a suit and tie on the zombie. Everyone's got a job to get to, and they're waiting for the train. Why does a zombie ride the train? I mean, I guess there could be victims, delicious brains, right, on the train. All right, is there going to be lightning? Do you have good ambiance? I want fog. I want lightning.
I think we have good ambience. We don't currently have any lightning, but that's definitely.
Ooh. Just kidding.
We could have a forest at night with lightning potentially.
Yeah, spooky lightning. Can you drive your train into a mausoleum and then you like go underground and then pop back out of a different mausoleum? It's like a portal kind of vibe.
We considered that because like we've kind of got that mechanic in Cosmic Express with the wormholes, and it's a divisive one. A lot of people don't like what that mechanic does to their brain, which I think is fair.
I just curse you by name when I'm playing your games, and I get to a hard puzzle.
Oh, and that's what I'm going for.
I just go, Alan.
I mean, we've talked a little bit about this on a previous podcast, but we are aiming for this game to be a bit less difficult than Cosmic Express, a bit more approachable.
Yeah, I would not complain about that. I mean, I like it good. I like challenges. I like the 100% stuff, and I'll grind on it to like get all the way through puzzles, but I also like the kind of I do have like a sweet spot for the just busy work puzzles where they're like enjoyable, but they're not. I don't have to use like so many short-term memory slots to solve it that I start to get frustrated.
And yeah, that's cognitive load is something that we've been discussing more in the last few years as we think about different mechanics and stuff.
Yeah, I also really like just a secondary thing to Jenga. Like I really liked in like Lara Croft Go how there's just like a hidden pot that you find and tap and you get a crystal, and it really has nothing to do with anything. So maybe you need a hidden spooky item.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about that kind of stuff. It's hard when you want to do a game that will work both on mouse and touchscreen and controller. Like when you're doing controller inputs, it's not really that good to have like, hey, there's stuff hidden in the background.
That's a different vibe on a gamepad.
But like, yeah, like background props, like they do love to be prodded. We haven't made them proddable yet, but by the time the game ships, if we haven't made the background props proddable, you have my permission to send me an angry email.
Hear me out, Alan. If we want the funniest bad way to do this, PlayStation has the touchpad on the controller.
Yeah.
And this is not me talking about any platforms we're doing, but like, and Switch has a touchscreen if you undock it. I don't think Xbox doesn't have anything, but like of like controller types.
Can't you plug a mouse into an Xbox? Isn't that a thing?
You can. They did that for Hypnospace Outlaw for some reason. You could use a mouse and keyboard on the console versions of that. I'm just thinking of like what's the weirdest, clumsiest way you could do it on controller?
If you do the L3 thumb click, it
God.
pops up a cursor.
Sure.
No, that is worse than anything I had come up with.
But then it can be like a Seventh Guest style animated skeletonized hand cursor, you know?
God, yeah, sure. Let's just make this a different game. Let's just make this like a multimedia DVD bonus feature game at that point.
I like this pitch, actually. And in fact, the year that I did Train Jam, there were a bunch of people who just would not drop the joke of doing like really bad FMV games. And so you've got a real opportunity for a gag here where you solve like one puzzle to get the train into like a haunted house, and then it's like an FMV haunted house game the whole rest of the game.
I mean, people love games which appear to be one thing on the surface and then are something a bit different.
Yeah, and you've already got their money by that point, so...
Yeah, Steve, we just got to make sure that we have an hour count going up so that it only happens at the 2 hour and 1 second mark.
2 hours of driving a train to a destination that once you reach, the game completely changes.
Gosh. I love me an FMV game. I think that my take is I think I'm done with FMV games that are trying to be bad. I just like FMV games that have heart and lean all the way in to we don't care that we're overacting. We feel like the genre needs overacting, but like we're doing cheesy because we have heart, not because we're a parody.
Wait, what about candy? Sorry, that's an HD brain. But is it like Halloween scary, or like is there trick or treaters in this game with the train?
Yeah, it's Halloween. It's Halloween.
I was gonna say the vibes are Halloween scary. It's not
horror.
Yeah, it's not horror at all.
So you could have there be candy delivery as a thing that the train gets. Like a kid could get on with an empty bucket, have to get the tracks of the candy, etc.
We got a potential mechanic that's not far off that.
All right. And then there's razor blades in the chocolate. Wait, no.
No. Suddenly we're jumping the age rating way up.
Fun blades.
Look, we got we got Bonfire Peaks rated 16 plus in Europe for months before a human looked at it and said, "Why is this 16 plus?" and dropped it all the way down to 7.
Did you ever figure out what it was?
Oh, I know exactly what it was. So, the fail state of that game. So you play a humanoid character in voxel art style, and there's a fail state where you get hit with an arrow and 3 droplets of blood come out.
Okay.
But crucially, it's due to player action.
Crazy.
And in theory, you could, if you wanted to be an age rating asshole, you could get yourself killed, hit the undo button, and keep looping it over and over and over. That was rated T in America and 16 plus in Europe, and I believe it is 7 plus in Europe now, but it is still T here.
Crazy.
What a bizarre everything. Video games, am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
So, yeah, talk to me about Joggernauts and like what inspired that.
Yeah, I've done other like Ludum Dare or Ludum Dare, however we're still saying that now. like puzzle games. I've done a lot of small puzzle games, but I haven't done any like big polished puzzle games really. But like Joggernauts, like just kind of crosses that line and ends up being like a weird puzzle game. It's basically like a puzzle auto runner, and you have to always cooperate when you play it. And like I think the cooperation thing is what led to the mechanics. I just had this idea where I was like, I want to make a couch co-op game, but it's like actually cooperative. You can't compete. No one person can carry the team. Like everyone has an equal part to play, and they have to play it. And then I was playing the original Bit Trip Runner with a friend of mine because I've always liked that game. And we were like passing the controller because it's single player, and it was just like, what if we were both doing Bit Trip Runner in the same course at the same time? And then it's like, how would you do that? You know, but wait a minute, like whoever's in front would have all the cool stuff to do, and the person following them would kind of feel like they're getting left behind. And then, well, wait a minute, what if you could switch positions? And then that was the prototype for Joggernauts. It was very, very mechanics first driven. I had no idea what the theme was going to be. I was just interested in like the forcing cooperative, exploring what you could do if you were like had the ability to switch positions in an auto runner. And then when I was showing that prototype in the local community in Minneapolis, I just got a reaction that I'd never seen really in anything else I'd ever showed anybody. And people were, it just had that like one more time, like addictiveness to it. And then an artist in the local community here, Tommy Sunders, was like, hey, you got a theme or an artist for this thing? And I was like, no, I do not, Tommy. And Robert Frost, who did our sound and music, had done game jams with Tommy before. And that's kind of how we all met each other, how it turned from a prototype into Joggernauts.
And how long was it like from that Ludendare version to releasing it? Because I feel like a lot of the time these like jam projects scaled up to a commercial game, that can be a very like painful experience, even as it's fun. So yeah,
it was definitely an adventure. I mean, it probably took 4 years to release, I want to say, and none of us were full time in video games for the first like 2.5 years of that, and then I went like full time on Joggernauts first for about 6 months because it really needed it. We needed to get to a place where we could finish it, which meant getting to a place where we could, make some deals or find a publisher or find some dev money so we could all be full time. And then we did. We landed a deal and we all went full time. And then it was, from the time that we had like actual signed contract, it was out in a little bit less than a year. But yeah, I mean, like 4 years, which is still a really long time to be working on something. It was actually a JavaScript prototype from that Game Jam version. And it stayed in JavaScript for a very long time until we like kind of established a visual direction and started to think about it as a commercial product. And then it was like, okay, this needs to be, Unity, so that Tommy has, a place where he has an editor and that he can put in all the visual stuff he wants to put in, and we'll have an easier time with console ports and stuff like that.
And then that shipped also on Switch.
Yeah. We had 3 like friends of ours did some little programming tasks towards the end of the project to get us past the finish line, and then for the like Steam release, and then I ended up doing the Switch port solo by myself, which wasn't too bad. I enjoyed it. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. I remember that like very first time I kicked off a build that didn't error out, right? I kicked off a build that was actually doing its slow Unity build thing with like the build and run on the dev kit. And I left the room because I had no idea how long it was going to take to finish, and it did take a long time. And then I started hearing Rob's music playing off the Switch from the other room, and I was like, holy shit, it works. I was like, it is running. I hear the theme song. I definitely remember that moment.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because I was, before I knew you and met you, I was interested and excited in the game and just seeing like trailers and marketing material, and then happened to go to Glitch the weekend that you launched the game, or the weekend before you launched the game, I think.
Yeah, and you found a game-breaking bug that no one found, not even Nintendo found, and they found all sorts of stuff.
I sure did. This is very funny. So yeah, I went there because I live in Wisconsin, which it was a 3.5 hour drive. I went with someone who was, I don't know if she still is at the time on the board of Glitch, named Allison, who's a friend of mine who's also local here in Madison, Wisconsin. We both took the drive together. Went there. I ended up on a talk with you about production methodology, and that was fun because it was both of us getting asked questions and both of us just kind of looking at each other and being like, "We make it work." That was that. I had like imposter syndrome going into that, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, I mean, I'm in good company of like, I don't know how to produce someone else's game with only one sentence question. It's like I don't know how good my advice is going to be, but yeah, I was on the floor the night before, and you were showing it off, and yeah, I played it for a level, and then I couldn't get to the next level, and I was like, "What the heck?" And eventually managed to repro the bug.
Yeah,
and I was
right there on the spot.
Yeah, I was like, I hope that this isn't like that. There's time to patch, and you and Tommy just kind of looked at each other. And were like, "This is the launch build."
Yeah, no, this is shipping imminently. Yeah, it wasn't really a bug on the like mainline happy path that most people would do. It was like slightly obscure, but I was still surprised that Nintendo hadn't caught it.
Yeah, it was. I had been using the second player controller, and it was something like if after completing a level, the second player controller is the first level, the first controller to try and move on the world map locks up, and no player can access any levels ever again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so much worse and more triggerable easily than I was expecting.
Yeah, and I was so shook by this, and literally, Alice just walked over and is like, "Syrenne, what did you do?" And I'm like, "I think Syrenne, breaker of builds, was here." Like, sometimes I just pick up a build. This happens on like retail games too all the time. Like I haven't been able to. I got so bummed out with Elden Ring because I was so excited for that game. I really like Souls games. And 3 hours in, I managed to somehow underbuffer my experience. So it wrapped all the way back around, and all of my stats became like, basically, I'm assuming hex FFFFFF. And I became immortal and killed everything in one hand. I was like, well, that sucks all the fun out of it, but I'm also like a few hours in, and I don't want to come restart this right away. And then I don't think I ever went back to it, really. And so I am just breaker of builds. That is who I am.
Natural talent.
But yeah, no, that was my first time meeting you. Was accidentally destroying your build, and then the very next day, being giving a Q&A style talk with you, where I was trying to explain how we got Manifold Garden to actually ship.
Incredible. Yeah, I mean, I think I remember you introducing yourself and being like, yeah, like QA producer, and then immediately break the game and repro it. And I'm like, yeah, QA for sure. Then.
Yep. That's I've done a lot of that. And then as soon as I found it, I was like, well, I'm not just gonna say found a massive bug in your game and walk away and leave you scared. It's like, no, I have time. I'll figure this one out. Bonkers.
Yeah.
So between a lot of the different stuff that you've worked on, I mean, an obvious common theme is cooperative multiplayer.
Yeah.
Sometimes semi-competitive cooperative, but usually cooperative multiplayer. Where does that kind of stem from?
That's a great question. I don't know if I've ever I would agree with you that there's been a strong more co-op collab aspect and then less deathmatch or race or any of the more pure competitive gameplay modes. I mean, there's definitely a part of me that kind of got like stale with all of the deathmatch trend in the couch co-op space, which was like kind of starting like there was a big moment for couch co-op that was kind of like winding down or just past peak in like 2015 or whatever that was when we were starting Joggernauts. But there were so many deathmatch games, and it felt like doing another deathmatch game, no matter what the theming or the hook with the mechanic would just get lost. And so there was kind of a practical sense of I want to do something different. That's the best way I can explain how it happened with Joggernauts. With some of the other stuff, it may just be dumb luck that like I ended up on Totally Reliable, and Stage Fright, which isn't competitive either. I mean, I did do a massively multiplayer browser joust. That was competitive. That was like pure deathmatch. You're riding narwhals. You're like a knight on the back of a narwhal. And it was like as many players as the network can handle joust. So I'm not like opposed, and I have like crazy lose my mind bloodlust for samurai gun, like just brilliant game. It's so violent, so competitive, brilliant. So I'm not like opposed to the genre. It just didn't feel like I had anything to add to it, I think, for a while.
That makes sense. Alan, when are we going to do the co-op puzzle game?
I gave this a shout out in the last Thinky Third Thursday, which when this podcast goes out might be the penultimate Thinky Third Thursday. No, not penultimate.
Whoa, I was going to say not second. We're not winding it down. That's the first I've ever heard of
it. In the April Thinky Third Thursday, I talked about a game called Double Trip, which is basically you take the Monsters Expedition log rolling mechanics and you just add a second player. Oh, and actually, this game will be out by the time this podcast releases. So yeah, you basically have two player characters. You can switch between them, and you are pushing logs around and rolling some of the logs into obstacles, or rolling the logs into the other player, and then you switch to that player. And so it's basically just like a soccer band game, but with two player characters you can switch between. But the level design in that was really, really strong. So yeah, like that's certainly a template for like, hey, you could just take a Monster Expedition, add a second player character. If you just added that to Monster Expedition, it would completely break the entire game. But if you designed the puzzles for it, that's a solid game right there.
I mean, I think it would break everything. I think it would be tremendously funny, though.
Oh, yeah.
If you had, like on the Switch, like if two people were able to connect local wireless so that they have their own screens, but they're in the same world.
Mm-hmm. And also with the Monster Expedition mechanics, like this wasn't in the Double Trip demo. I don't know what's in the full game, but like if you had Monster Expedition, you've got the raft. You've got one character on the raft. Like you can push that raft in any direction you want. Like that just totally breaks all the world wide open.
That's why I'm saying like that would need to be just like a just like an open exploration. Like the puzzles are still there, but like the puzzles are clearly no longer the focus. That just becomes a mess around in this playground type experience. But I think it would be very funny.
But yeah, but with more focused puzzle, like mechanic design that doesn't let you break everything to that degree. Like a lot of soccer band block pushing games are actually surprisingly dependent on which parts of the level can you walk from A to B and which can you not. It's like vanilla soccer band. A lot of it is like, oh, well, I want to push this crate in this way, but if I do that, then I won't be able to then get to the other side of it.
Right.
And so, yeah, like just having a second player character so you can like walk one of them into a slot and then push the crate in and then the other character pushes it out. I think you could make some really, really good co-op puzzle games that weren't like broken and open in that way that a game like Monsters Expedition would be if you just threw in a second player character. And we're probably never going to do it because it doesn't play to my strengths.
But it would be funny. Anyways, as we wind down, I know we've had a lot of back and forth, but Zach, do you have any questions for us that you haven't already asked?
Yeah, I mean, the one I was excited about was the grilling you about the new game and asking about process, and we hit on those pretty well. I mean, not a question, but a comment. Like, having been a listener of podcasts, it's just been fun to, hear other people have the experience of how different the games industry has been since COVID. It's been fun that you've had like a bunch of new parents or soon to be parents. Because I had like an 11-month-old girl, so like I became a parent post COVID, and yeah, it's been fun on the podcast to hear from people living their lives and having those experiences too.
Yeah, it's funny enough, it's a big industry, but it's a tiny industry.
Yeah.
Of like, there's a lot of you hear a lot of similar stories, and one thing that I especially liked about doing the podcast is even if Melanie has teased me before about how often we get into the conversation about intergenre retention about puzzle games, about convincing players who play one that they want to go play another. But like, it comes at a different angle every single time, because like everyone's perspective is different enough, skewed enough. Everyone's experience is different enough, and yeah, I love it. This is the 28th episode we've recorded, and I'm not tired of it. And I don't, eventually we'll slow down and go into probably bi-weekly podcast episodes. But I'm just happy about where things are at.
Do you have a screenshot or direct link to my inspirational tweet so that I can like put it on Blue Sky before the game comes out?
Yep.
And then be like, look how smart I am after the fact.
Yeah. Let me DM it to you on Blue Sky right now.
Nice.
Yes, we pulled that so we could get the exact timestamp.
I can look wise all over again.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like that has literally been that link has been in a document of possible game ideas for at least 5 years, probably much longer.
There's like a ravenous fan base. I mean, I guess I could be proved wrong. I hope not. But I think there's a ravenous fan base for like spooky stuff. And
here's hoping.
Have you thought about like the other supposed or perceived ravenous fan bases, like cats, right? Dogs, frogs, like, in just going with one of those
frogs, you say?
Yeah,
frogs. Yes.
Actually, this is like, so yeah. I mean, I made a jam game like a couple of years ago with Patrick Trainer called Frog Wizard Gem Quest.
Nice.
And that's one of the games that we were considering expanding.
Yeah, supposedly the frog fans will buy anything with a frog in it. Apparently, they're very loyal. That's the rumor.
But we had to fuck up and go with like a cute black monster goblin thing.
Is that your first F-bomb on the podcast?
Maybe.
I think it is. Usually I'm the one that swears.
I sweared on the...
I'm a bad influence.
It's fine. This is behind the scenes. I have an inventory spreadsheet of all of the episodes that we have, and I have a column that I write down any quick notes that I'll need to remember, because if someone swears on an episode, we don't bleep it. We just mark that episode as explicit, because most of the episodes are not. And as soon as you swore, I just put explicit.
Funny.
But yeah, no, happy about this. This episode might come out a little bit later than it's been recorded, just because we have a lot of May episodes to release, mostly to promote Spooky Express by talking to the development team. But we're very Very excited for this one to get out, and it was very important that we record it before you saw the announcement on your own.
Right, yeah. Well, thanks for bringing me into the fold. This has been fun. A little secret surprise for my week.
Yeah,
of course.
And thank you again for jumping on. You already kind of mentioned it at the top, but where can people find you online, and do you have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, absolutely. Usually my handle is Zachstronaut online. Prefer you find me on Blue Sky to the other places. And definitely want to plug Stage Fright. Those wish lists really do help. I know people say it all the time. It's true. Love for you to wish list Stage Fright. If you loved Overcooked, hopefully you're excited for another game by the same people. If Overcooked was very stressful and rage-inducing for you, the good news is this is not that kind of game. So give it a shot.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you. And thank you for listening to the Draknek and Friends official podcast. Our music is by Priscilla Snow, who you can find at ghoulnoise.bandcamp.com. Our podcast artwork is by Adam DeGrandis. Our podcast is edited by Melanie Zawodniak. Please rate and review us on your podcast service of choice, and be sure to tune in next episode for more interesting conversations.